as WA enters lockdown after just 3 cases. Plenty of you are asking, where's the plan? I know I am. Clearly, we're not only having vaccination hesitancy, and let's face it, all Australians deserve vaccine choice. That includes people over 60 who've worked all their lives and paid taxes. We now have such low vaccination rates that panicky premiers are resorting to lockdowns to protect, in the case of WA at least, inadequate hospitals and healthcare systems. And I tell you what, it beggars belief. When will this end? We're almost 18 months into this pandemic, and here we are with a lockdown with 3 cases in WA. And if we trace back the origins of these cases in Western Australia, these 3 cases originated from the New South Wales Bondi cluster, and that was the unvaccinated limo driver. Now, it's true that vaccinated people can catch and transmit the virus, but that has not been well explained, and it's, in my view, leading to a garbled message around vaccination, which the premiers are capitalising on. If you don't think this is being politicised, well, I'll show you the politics of the pandemic on some of the front pages tomorrow. Queensland, I know you're on a knife edge with COVID tests from 169 Queensland miners due tomorrow, and we'll show you the front page of the Courier Mail. And look, if it's any consolation, many of us feel your discomfort at the uncertainty. We're not forgetting you, New South Wales. And isn't it incredible that only now an urgent ban on domestic travellers quarantining with high-risk international arrivals has only just been put in place in Queensland? And let's not forget, these premiers are very quick to blame shift. There is, on the papers tomorrow, quote, fury over the rollout, over extreme measures, and in more than one state, and permission for under 40s to be vaccinated with AstraZeneca. Although there are conflicting messages around that too, we'll point those out for you. Plus mandatory vaccination for aged care workers. Later on in the show, I think we'll need a laugh. The UK Health Secretary, dear, oh dear, oh dear. Politicians, eh? Not all of them, some of them. Joining me in the studio is journalist and commentator Nathan Hondras. Nathan, good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Jane. Thank you for having me.
It's terrific to have you here in the studio. I don't know for how long. We're socially distanced. I don't know for how long.
I think the state police will be bursting through the doors any moment, Jane.
Let's have a look. The Premier of Western Australia, Mark McGowan, held a press conference about an hour ago in Western Australia. Let's take a look at what he has had to say.
We know the risk COVID presents, and we know from around the world that the Delta strain is another new beast that we can't take any chances with. It is debilitating and it can be deadly. And it has the potential to threaten our community, our jobs and our livelihoods. That is why, based on advice from the Chief Health Officer, effective from midnight tonight, Perth and Peel will enter a full lockdown. The lockdown will be in place for 4 days at a minimum.
Nathan Hondras, I gave my thoughts to Paul Murray tonight. I think that West Australians won't happily embrace this lockdown, but I noticed this morning after we had the mask mandate yesterday morning, when the West Coast Eagles match at Optus Stadium was closed to spectators, we were told to wear masks indoors and that we didn't have to wear them outdoors unless we couldn't socially distance. Very quiet on the streets of Perth this morning, not your normal rush hour, and people out isolated on their own but wearing masks. That just shows me that people are afraid.
People are afraid, and we never get a lockdown, we never get restrictions, we never get news of some infringement on how we're supposed to go about our daily lives from state governments without a healthy dose of fear and an appeal to fear. I mean, listening to Premier Mark McGowan this evening, 3 cases. So 3 cases.
All in the northern suburbs of Perth?
All in the northern suburbs of Perth. He's consistently made the case against some kind of hotspot control of the spread. But then he goes on to describe this Delta variant as a beast variant. It's always with this appeal to our worst nature, I think.
And the anthropomorphisation of the virus, so that you imagine a beast, right? It's a virus.
There's a monster in the house, and we have to deal with it through whatever measures he's rolling.
It's frightening, especially for older Australians when they hear that kind of language. In fact, before I go to the front pages, I just want to play, because the language around this has been interesting, that comes up in our front pages. I want to play Josh Frydenberg and Peter Collignon. Josh Frydenberg, the Premier, talked about the Delta variant today, which is the variant of concern that we are dealing with here. The genomic testing is showing that, tracing it back to the unvaccinated limo driver in New South Wales. I want to play a bit of Josh Frydenberg and Peter Collignon, who was on with Chris Kenny, both on Sky News today. Let's just take a look.
The Delta variant is more dangerous, it's more contagious.
The available evidence is it's not more deadly. If you actually look at the figures from UK, it's got a lower mortality rate.
So we've got politicians telling us it's more dangerous and it's a beast, and you've got epidemiologists saying it's not more deadly, but it looks like it's more transmissible.
Well, the language of the politicians is just intemperate, Jane. It's just, it's so ramped up, and you get the sense from listening to people like Collignon, even Gladys Berejiklian, prior to the lockdown, that they've got to be honest about it and not try and convince us to go along with lockdowns or whatever it is they're trying to get through with this overwrought language.